My experience happened before I understood what religion or anything in the world really was. I brought a tennis ball home from daycare, and when my mom said she was going to take a shower after work, I noticed the back door was unlocked. Does any kid want to play with a tennis ball, especially in the backyard? The tennis ball bounced into a jacuzzi, which I tried to retrieve with what I thought was a toy rake. I remember falling in, knowing I didn't know how to swim, and trying my hardest to get back to the surface where I knew I could breathe. The jacuzzi was in automated heating mode, which kept the jets on but without bubbles. This made the jacuzzi almost an invisible vortex. My mom arrived shortly after, noticing the water still splashing when she saw I was in the jacuzzi. Blue in the face and completely lifeless, she began CPR, and I spit up about 85% of the water. Still unconscious and with 911 on the way, my mom had almost given up. Once we arrived at the hospital, doctors tried to revive me, but I was lifeless. They pulled a sheet over my head, and the nurses walked away. My grandpa gave me a blessing for safe passage to heaven due to his beliefs as a Latter-day Saint. Although it sounds like a Hallmark movie, at the moment he said, "Amen." I woke up choking and breathing as my mom and grandpa removed the sheet from my face. All the color, blood, and life returned to my body. This is a blend of what I remember before dying and waking up in the hospital, and what my family recalls from the experience. Then there's my side of the story, what I saw when I took that big breath of pure water. The feeling was painless. Smoking today brings me more discomfort, though with less fear. As a vignette covered my eyes, I knew that if I fought to see the brightness, even with my eyes closed, I could see light through my eyelids, so I tried to find the sun. When I made contact with the sun, I felt my body lifted out of the water in the blink of an eye. I rose 2 to 3 stories off the ground, about 60 feet away from my mom giving me CPR. Before this sounds like sci-fi, just know that my family thought I was a compulsive liar for years. At 16, they held an intervention and asked for my exact account of what happened that day. I mentioned the ambulance missing our house, my mom needing my favorite blanket, and my uncle searching for keys after my mom left in the ambulance with me. Details I never knew they remembered. Since then, I'm not allowed to talk about this day because of the horror it brought to my family. So there I was, 50 feet off the ground, floating above my family's 2-story house, with the feeling of an angel holding me by my armpits. Suddenly I was lifted at the speed of light to a place I can only describe as the outside of everything, where I saw a giant sun and was orbiting it like an exercise ball in zero gravity. I was aware my limbs and body were longer, and I felt much older and wiser. Gravitationally drawn toward the sun, I experienced every positive feeling imaginable, all light and life condensed into one. As I embraced it, it felt like a job well done, as though my spirit was holding on to life itself. Without words, it urged me to confess all my thoughts, wonders, and dreams. Then I woke up in the hospital, feeling as if I had absorbed an unseen shadow, a shadow of reality. For 16 years I wandered, feeling lost and isolated. At 18, my mom went from being a dedicated housewife, embodying an LDS example, to choosing life on the streets, where substances in a bag seem more valuable than anything else. I'm still working through the resentment. At 18, I said a prayer, something I hadn't believed in since I was 2. I prayed mostly to rid myself of negative feelings and to finally sleep after being up for 2 days, stress-induced. She had convinced everyone I was a giant liar rather than admit her drug addiction. This ultimately caused me to have an emotional breakdown and reevaluate everything I thought about life. After the prayer, I got an amazing 2 hours of sleep, only to wake up with an overwhelming sense of energy. Uninspired by any thought, I decided to play Call of Duty. On my way to my gaming chair, I found one of my family's old Bibles, dating back to before the 1800s. Although I believed religion had been distorted over time, this old Bible intrigued me. After reading Genesis, Job, and other parts, I spent the next 6 months in a deep depression, isolated from the world, barely leaving my room. I hesitate to mention psychedelics, but at 20, I tried psychedelic mushrooms, which are now shown to help and even cure depression. The experience brought me back to the feeling I had at 2 years old, but instead of seeing a sun, I saw every imaginable color radiating from a single point, like a limitless star. Feeling both my human body and emotions, I was in fear. Was this Satan? Was I dead again? Who am I? Suddenly, the starburst cast colors into every moment of my life, both past and future. In 5 seconds, it shared every memory I was going to have with me, as if finally opening the package that sun had sent me 18 years earlier. For anyone who has lost a loved one, know that this world is the negative, and everything after death is the positive. We come to this world to experience negativity, to see how positivity can overcome it in every situation. Our spirit evolves, growing larger, with the ultimate goal of becoming our own galaxies, our true forms. It may sound far-fetched, but I received a prophetic blessing that lets me see the world like a crystal ball. You are all beautiful, and no one is more beautiful than another. This story was shared by Body P.